The Survival Guide to Life.
Hey everyone, we got another episode of the Survival Guide to Life, and this week we got a guest, Cyber Salih. Now, Salih is from the UK, and he's a cybersecurity expert in the subject matter of GRC. This is my first time actually speaking to him, and it just shows you the power of the podcast, or how you can use podcasts for something like networking and learning and just growing in your own field. How's it going, Sally?
I'm good, thank you. Yeah, I'm doing very well, and thank you for having me on. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, and just starting out my morning.
Yeah, no,
So,
that's really good. Got the coffee ready.
yeah. So, what I wanted to ask was, how was your start into cybersecurity? Was that something that you wanted to pursue during your college years, or did it sort of happen like later on its own?
It definitely happened later on. I think in my college and school years, I was on a different path and had no intention of going into cybersecurity or IT. I remember in school, I kind of hated doing IT. And it was quite boring because they're just teaching you how to use Microsoft Word and Excel and that kind of stuff, not really anything exciting in the cyber world. And then I worked various jobs, didn't go to university, um, which would be college in America. And then I was working at one takeaway job and I was browsing, I think it was Facebook, and I remember seeing an advertisement for hiring a hacker for like 70 something thousand pounds. And I thought that's a lot of money. And also, I kind of was really shocked at the concept of being paid to be a hacker. And that's kind of what sparked my interest in cybersecurity. And after that, I did a lot of research, started doing some learning, took some basic courses. Well, not really basic, but TCM security, the cyber mentor.
Yeah.
Um, I did his ethical hacking courses, and I started there really just kind of researching online, finding things to use, and then I ended up getting an entry level role within IT support in a company that had a security team. And I kind of was very annoying, kept asking to be mentored, more information. And I was self-studying, had like a blog and a website at the time, which I was publishing what I was learning. And started my YouTube channel back then, although I was not very consistent when I did do that. And then yeah, eventually a role opened up that I was kind of offered an interview for, and it was within the audit space, which is part of GRC. And I had no idea what GRC was. I didn't even know what a policy was, how things were working. In my head at the time, cybersecurity was just hacking and defenders. I didn't realize there was a whole GRC component to it. And I prepared very well for the interview. I think they hired me mainly on my attitude and my willingness to learn. And I'd done a lot of research into the requirements and had some very deep questions. Um, and then, yeah, that's kind of how I started. It wasn't something that I planned in any way. It was just kind of seeing that job posting for a hacker just made me realize that this existed. And then since then, I've just been learning more and more every day, trying to get better. So that's kind of how I've ended up in cybersecurity.
That's a really unique way or path. What really spoke out to me was the fact that you started out in, I guess, like you can say sort of help desk, correct? Like
Yeah,
technical support, and then from there you were still learning, but you were seeking a mentor, and then at the same time you were documenting your path and then your progress. I think all of these components is like crucial in like development in one's character.
yeah, 100%. I completely agree. I think sometimes people oversimplify it to just to get into cybersecurity, you need to learn the skills. But I think the networking, finding mentors, showing your work, blogging about it, making videos, writing about it, and actually showing people your skills, how you think, how you approach problems, would give people a lot of insight before they even hire you. So I think that part was very crucial to me, and it gives you a bit of confidence within the field because you get feedback on stuff you've put out. And it's crazy how something you might think is so small and so insignificant and minor can just be a huge popular blog or video. Like I remember one of my blogs was a very specific Kali Linux issue to do with expanding disk space. I won't get into the technical side of it, but I wrote a blog on it at the time and made a video, and that blew up and got republished in like Linux websites and some help pages, and and I had so many people reaching out just based on that. And to me, it was just an annoying problem that took me a few days to figure out. But that just kind of, I had so many people reaching out. I was like really shocked at how, like, in my head, that was being published just to document my work to show to an employer. I had no plan for the kind of wider community to actually digest that or take it in or even reach out to me in any way, shape, or form. So, yeah, I definitely say showing your work online and publishing what you know, even if it's anonymously or within a private setting that you kind of share privately, it's a huge benefit, and it sets you apart from someone else who just has done some certifications or learning, but there's no evidence or visuals of that. So yeah, definitely a big important concept, I think, showing your work online.
As you mentioned, cybersecurity and certifications. What comes to mind is like the gold standard, so to say, or the CISSP, exam. And I know that you have taken it and you passed. I don't want to get into the questions or anything like that. What I do want to ask is just your path in how it was in studying. What were some of the thoughts going in your head, and then when finally you got that paper saying that you passed the exam.
Um, yeah, so I guess the CISSP was only my second certification, and wasn't, I did it very early on in my career. Normally, a lot of people get a lot of experience before attempting it. But I guess my reasoning was I want this in the first, 2 or 3 years within the industry, because as they say, it's like a mile wide, sorry, and an inch deep, and it gives you a very surface level understanding of everything within cybersecurity. So at least you're familiar with the terms, you understand the concepts. So yeah, it was a particularly hard exam for me because at the time when I was studying for it, a lot of the concepts were brand new to me and I had no idea what they were. And I think that's a different approach to a lot of people who suggest taking it later on in your career. I wanted to do it early on just so I have a broad understanding of cybersecurity in general and then specialize as I kind of progress through my career. Um, and in terms of what it was like, I'm not going to lie to you, it was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. I wouldn't recommend it to anyone unless you're really, really serious about it and you really want it. I spent the best part of the year studying for it, and it was a lot of late nights, very early mornings. I got into a routine of waking up at like 4 or 5 a.m., studying for a few hours, starting work, finishing work, studying again on the evening. I had to have conversations with my family to say, like, look, I'm going to be very busy and tied up. So I can't see you as often or I can't participate in this particular thing. And they understood, they were very supportive, but that's an important thing. You need to have that support around you so people understand what you're trying to do. And when you think about it, it's a level 7 qualification, which is on the level of like a master's degree. I don't think it's equivalent to a full master's degree, but it's that same level of difficulty. So it's, for me, I kind of left college, left school, didn't really pursue higher education. So that level of problem solving and thinking I had never had to do to that level. You know, the highest thing I achieved was like a level 4 or 5, actually just a 4, which would have been like A levels, or were they 3? I think they were level 3, but essentially their, school early on would be a level 2, sometimes a 3, depending on what you do. College would probably be a 3 or 4 here within the UK. A level 7 is a master's degree, so you've skipped the kind of progression of learning and problem solving you would do, um, and you've gone straight into the deep end. So it's a very difficult exam, if you don't have any experience or a lot of experience. But for those who are senior, who have been doing it a while, they'll probably, you've seen people online, I'm sure, that have done it in like a week or 2 weeks because they've got 10 to 15 or maybe more years of experience and they've already touched on all those different areas. While for me, I went in understanding and knowing auditing and the kind of audit framework, processes, procedures, a little bit of policy development, etc. But I didn't really understand the networking side, the security architecture, the engineering, DevOps, DevSecOps. That was all brand new to me. Um, so yeah, it was a very difficult exam, but well worth it, I think. So I think one of your points was, how did I feel? Um, I remember when I got it. I'll tell you, the weird thing is, like, on my last 10 questions of the exam, because when I sat it, there's a range between 125 and 175 questions. So essentially, if you have a 95% chance of passing at 125%, you pass immediately. But also, if you have a 95% chance of failing, you fail immediately. And I remember on the last 10 questions, I literally thought, shall I just give up? There is no point in answering these questions. I was so certain that I had failed. And I had to have like a little battle in my mind where just walk away. There's no point doing the exam. There's no point even finishing it because you've definitely failed. But I thought, okay, I'll just see it through, see what happens. And at 125, the exam just finishes immediately. And I thought, yeah, that's me failing. Walking out, and the guy hands me the certificate or the sheet that says, you've provisionally passed. And I remember just, like, he handed it to me and it was like folded, and like he was like, "You got to get your stuff out the locker first." I was like, "Just let me see the sheet." He was like, "No, get your stuff out the locker." So I had to go over, empty my locker, all that. Got my sheet, and I remember I was just shocked. I was like, "How did I pass?" It was like, yeah, it just didn't even make sense. So it was a very, moment of true happiness, especially from the year building up to it. And you get that 5 minute high of just wow, and then you just get on with your life. I think I had some
Yeah.
painting to do, some helping my parents out with some stuff around the house, in their house, like, with some carpets and painting, and I just, carried on the day as it was normal. But those were a good 5 minutes of just feeling really happy. It was, yeah, really relieving.
No, it seems like your thought process and why you took the exam makes sense. I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure you saw that like map, right, of like every cybersecurity certification and
Yeah,
like the category it's in. And then if you see the CISSP, it's one of the longest ones that like delve in almost every subject within cybersecurity. So
yeah.
in that regards, it makes a lot of sense. So after taking the exam and being in auditing, what is it like working in GRC?
Um, it's it's difficult to say. I can speak from my perspective, but I think GRC on its own is so wide that working in different parts of GRC is going to look very different to people. So for the areas that I work in, which is mainly around ISO 27001, we've got something in the UK called Cyber Essentials and Cyber Essentials Plus. You also have the DSPT, which is similar to what you would have as HIPAA compliance, Probably not as stringent, but along that same PHI healthcare data side of things. And I also do a little bit of data analysis too. That's just kind of a side thing, not really specific to GRC, but I use it in security quite a lot. Um, and I also, yeah, it can be a lot of various things. Sometimes I do get involved in some network architecture stuff, but as a consultant, the client can just kind of ask something, and you have your recommendations. They might pay for your time to do very specific things or very broad things. So each engagement's kind of different. I think as when you're a consultant, you get to see hundreds of different environments, different setups, different frameworks, different infrastructure kind of styles of doing things, essentially. So it's very fast moving, very fast paced. I think if you're working GRC internally within a company, it'd be it could be more straightforward or it could be more complex. But yeah, I'd say it's great. It's an exciting career. I think it's like you work very closely to a lot of different teams, you speak to a lot of people, and you get involved in quite a lot of projects. Even if it's not a GRC project, there's always an element of documentation or policy or, some sort of part of the project where you will add value to. So you get to see quite a lot. I think you get exposure to parts of cybersecurity that you wouldn't necessarily have if you were just working as a SOC analyst, for example. You know, a SOC analyst might be um, very experienced, well trained, well versed in one specific tool or tools, and understand a lot of the defense processes within that, but they rarely would get involved in, I don't know, a compliance audit or something like that. So it's one of those areas where you touch almost everything. Some areas you obviously get more involved in, and some areas you're kind of yeah, you own and they're completely your responsibility.
Yeah, so what I meant in regards to that, like, it's not really like you can say, I guess, like a sexy part of cybersecurity. Like a lot of people look into like the red teaming and like ethical hacking and like the offsec and that side, and that's
Yeah,
really what intrigues them. But I really see that there's a need, or like a lot of people should, well, not a lot. The people who are capable should, try to know about this and come into this role for because the needs are only going to grow, because I feel like as time goes on, more and more cyber warfare is going to be there, and there's going to be more people that need to defend and combat it.
yeah, yeah. I definitely agree. And even for myself, just going back to my own story, that's initially what attracted me to cybersecurity was the hacking, the cool red teaming side. But I think people don't realize how cool GRC actually is. People just assume you're just sitting there all day writing policies and updating things, and that's it. That's your job. You do that for, 8 or 9 hours and then you go home. But it's really not the case. I think like being involved in a client or a company that comes to you and says, look, I don't even know what cybersecurity is. I want a full direction for my maturity and my compliance. And you can give them like a 5 year strategy, and you can say, right, you start off with this level of compliance, go for this standard or this framework or align to this. And after that, you're going to do this. And then the end stage might be, full penetration tests done regularly, a full SOC team, manned or outsourced or whatever, being involved. And it's kind of that journey where you're building security programs from the ground up. Typically, if you're SOC, red teaming, etc., you kind of tend to see the same things day in, day out. And of course, you're going to test so many different environments. But I think with GRC, it's like you really get to essentially set the direction of security and make high level recommendations and strategic plans that aren't um, aren't something that can be patched quickly or something that can be fixed. It's a different kind of level of thinking. Not that it's better, it's just different, where you're looking at it from a completely different angle, top-down organization supporting the business through their security projects and implementations. It's a very like cool and fun thing to do. And in my opinion, if you were to think of it as like a business and the kind of structure of cybersecurity, to get to the top, let's say the top is a CISO, um, you're essentially a very specialized GRC person. That's what a CISO is at the end of the day. They're not going to be hacking anyone or putting out Nmap to run scans. That's not what CISOs do. They set the direction for security, write policies, or enforce rules that people will follow. And GRC is, there's levels within that you're assisting the CISO or security directors in that journey. Um, so yeah, I definitely think you need to have some technical understanding, but it's not as technical as a security engineer might be. So yeah,
But I think in that regard, like, because I see that's a path that I myself am like gonna take. As I'm about to take the CISP myself, but I still think that even pursuing that route, I'm still going to uh, do these other things as like offsec and ethical hacking, even though that I don't want to have that as a career, but I still want to be able to understand and like have, I could say, not common knowledge, but be able to do any position myself within it, if that makes sense. But I want to specialize in what I like.
yeah. I think there is some nuance to that. So there's like different types of CISOs, security managers, and if you are more a technical CISO where you are a bit more hands-on or you understand the technical processes inside and out, then yes, that would be relevant for that type of CISO. But you do have some that are very compliance based and regulation based, and they're more like lawyers than they are a security person. Then you obviously have CISOs that come in to clean up messes after a huge, breach or something's happened. You've got different types of CISOs. So I think what you're referring to is having the hands-on technical knowledge is aligned with the more technical types of CISOs,
Yeah,
which is which is not a bad thing.
no,
They're all
yeah,
needed and
yeah.
relevant where they are.
No, no, I was just speaking in regards to like what I wanted. It's just in that aspect, like not to negate that like HIPAA compliance or GRC, as that's actually what really excites me, or what I think I'm fit for because of the way my brain works. But at the same time, say anything does go wrong within the organization and there's not anyone in the team that can handle it, I want to be able to have that skill set to like, okay, let me clean it up. But like, I don't want to have to do that, day in and day out, knit and grit. Not saying that like, I don't like hard work, but that's not what I want. Like you want to work a job that you're passionate about. So this ability to go and speak to different companies, different organizations, trying to figure out strategies in creating the most cost-effective structure that's also secure for them, but in regards also compliant to where their data is being housed, right? So
Yeah, yeah, 100%. I think that's a good mentality to have. I think being hands-on and holding the passion for the technical side and the learning and understanding what your teams are doing to as low a level as you can in terms of the operations will just make you a better CISO. And I think that's a great thing to have as a CISO. A lot of people in that kind of position tend to forget, or they don't keep up to date with those skills, and they turn into managers, or large scale project managers, and they don't really have any hands-on security experience anymore, which is fine. But what I hear you're essentially saying is you don't want to be that guy that has kind of stepped out of security, and now you're just basically in the management role, managing teams as opposed to being hands-on.
Yeah, and then actually also like some things that like I wanted to go, which I don't think really is you know people think within cybersecurity is combating like fraud or anti-money laundering. I think that's a big part because a lot of these crimes are done on the computer, which is in regards cybersecurity. So I think they kind of sort of go hand in hand, and having maybe a few experts that know both this side as well as the technical side would do justice for companies. Whereas I see that they have their banking financial side, which are experts, and then their cybersecurity side, and then there's barely any communication between the two, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, and that's a bad thing because you're right. A lot of fraud and laundering, etc., is being done online more and more. Um, and having someone who understands the finances, maybe someone who's like a fully qualified accountant, but also
Yeah.
has cybersecurity skills, would be the best person or combination of skills and teams to work together to combat that. I think it is changing slightly, but it's very early stages. I mean, cybersecurity is still a very young industry relative, like computers have only been around and accessible for the best part of 25 years, maybe. Do you know what I mean? And
Mm.
before that, it wasn't really in everyone's home in the way it is today. So I think even understanding how to protect data is still something that we're all trying to figure out. We understand the fundamentals, but in terms of how to better prevent fraud and financial crime and data breaches and all the other kind of aspects that we work to combat, to stop bad things from happening, it's still not fully figured out. There's new laws that are coming out every year, every 2 years that, swing the pendulum in one direction, and something might come out or something might get changed. And every country, even within a country, you'll have so many different laws in regards to privacy, and just for each state in America, for example. And it's the same in like within Europe and the UK, and there's a lot of
So,
infancy. What's the word? Sorry, infancy,
yeah.
infancy. Cybersecurity is very much at the infancy stage of its development.
No, yeah, I completely agree. I was just saying in regards, maybe someone's listening that's, a financial expert, and now maybe listening to this, they might think, oh, maybe I should learn some cybersecurity. Or I think that it's essential maybe for anyone, like even a person who's not going to work just basic security knowledge to keep your own emails and your own stuff from being hacked, or being a part of you see it all the time, things happening. So just common security practices, I think, is just important in everyone's life, and then
Yeah, yeah, I definitely agree. And I think companies can do more as well to train finance teams to help them understand the risks, and what they should and shouldn't be doing a bit better. But yeah, I completely agree. You're right. Yeah,
so
people should learn the basics.
So, where do you see yourself, I guess, Sally, in like 5 years within cybersecurity?
Um, I would say I've got a lot of plans for what I want to do. I'm mainly focusing at the minute at essentially studying, getting better. I'm learning more around cloud security, gonna hopefully pursue some certifications specific to cloud security. I have worked on a lot of, cloud projects, cloud migrations, a lot of compliance around cloud stuff, but I really want to specialize a little bit more within cloud security. And in terms of what I want to be, it's difficult to say. I really want to just focus on growing my own kind of profile, carrying on posting videos on YouTube and trying to, add value to people and help people get into the industry. So I definitely think there might be a training element to that. And I'm not sure, it depends on the exact opportunities that I get, but I guess it's probably either working on my own or working with someone or a company. That part hasn't been fully figured out, but I just know that, in the next 5 or 10 years, I will have more certifications, I will have more knowledge, I will have better ways to improve my own kind of profile and marketing, and hopefully, my big goal is to help more people get into the industry. I've mentored quite a few people, and luckily, quite a lot of them have got into the industry. Some are still working towards that, and it's a really nice feeling to help people and give back. So I definitely want to see what I can do to help beginners get people more interested in GRC, in cybersecurity, and yeah, that's kind of my goal. It's probably
S-
not as structured as someone else's, but I kind of have
No,
a rough idea of where I'm going.
you have a vision. That's what matters. And then I guess in regard, other than cybersecurity and work, what is like some of your hobbies and some of the things you like to do on the your off days?
Yeah, I guess the big thing for me is, family. I'm very close to my family, my mom, my dad, my son, my wife. We do a lot of activities together, go places, I think, yeah, family is number one. So it takes up, a significant amount of time because, every weekend I'll go and see my parents, and on the evenings I'll try and spend as much time with my son, playing, teaching him. Sometimes we train together. And gym, to be honest, if I have time and I'm on my own, I either, unless I'm not reading or studying or doing anything work related or video editing or whatever, I guess that it would just be either seeing some friends, getting some food, or just going to the gym and training. That's kind of what I try and do as much as I can.
Yeah, that's great. Body, mind, everything keep in top shape and keep it training because you don't want to keep anything nimble. And then lastly, I guess Sally is if you could end on a quote, any quote, something that sort of you've seen recently and sort of resonated with you.
Um, okay. Um, so there's this quote, and I can't remember it word for word, but I can paraphrase it. So it's by an Islamic scholar called Imam Al-Ghazi, and it was something to the effect of the period of suffering you're going through is an act of worship in itself, and it kind of resonated with me at the time, and I kind of saved it to my background on my phone. And essentially, if I can unpack that a little bit, essentially it's basically saying that when you're working towards something or when you're trying to do something and you've got a lot going on, whether at home, whether with family, friends, life, whatever situation you're in, you know, going through that alone is an act of kind of worship to your Lord, or if you not may not necessarily be religious or believe in God, but you could look at that from the angle of it's a positive thing that's contributing towards your life in the yeah in your life. So it's like I guess it's just one of those quotes that really personally resonated with me, and I thought about a lot where you're going through something, and don't worry, because that's a positive thing. That even though things might look dark and bleak and horrible, and you want to be out of a particular situation, you want some sort of solution to something, going through that and suffering through it is actually a good thing, because on the other side you're going to come out a lot stronger and a better person and more resilient, and you're going to have the tools to deal with whatever life throws at you next, essentially. So that was just a deep quote that personally, resonated a lot with me.
Then, lastly, if you want, you can shout out or tag, any of your social media, your handles, your YouTube.
Yeah, I guess if you just go onto YouTube and type in Cyber Salih, you'll be able to find my videos in there. And from there, it will kind of, if you went into the description or my channel page, you find all my other links to everything else. So yeah, I'll keep it short. Cyber Salih. I don't have a website anymore. I'm thinking about creating one in the future, but yeah, you can find me on YouTube.
Mentally, spiritually, financially, consistently.